could just sort of give us the final part of the story.
Okay, well, having adopted children and permanently fostered them, and having started a fostering and post-adoption support service, it kind of became hugely part of our lives, what we were doing day to day, living, eating, sleeping and breathing the whole thing really. And then the law changed. Up until that point, it was lawful for children, young people who'd been relinquished to search for their birth family, but it was not lawful for relinquishing parents to seek after their children. But that all changed, and so I made the decision to get in touch with the adoption agency who my son had been placed through, and to have some counselling with a social worker, which again was an interesting experience, and to make that decision to look at writing a letter. And I think the thing that I agonised over the most was about me not knowing who he was, where he was, what his life had become, and actually what the impact of me invading his life would be on him. And that was quite a difficult decision, because I didn't feel that I had the right to impose myself upon him. But emotionally I had always thought about him, prayed for him, cared for him in my heart in that place. I suppose really just in terms of the depths of who you are as a person, that he was always very much part of who I am. And so I made that decision that I would take that risk really, because he could always say no, but I would hope that he would say yes. And so I wrote my letter, and as things turn out, what was quite amazing was that our letters literally crossed in the post. What had happened is that my son had got married, he'd had a son of his own, and this was the first face that he'd ever looked into, to look for recognition, to look for the shape of a face and the colour of eyes and kind of the definition of what it is to have DNA. And that sent him on his own journey in terms of wanting to find me and wanting to find his story. And so, as I say, our letters crossed in the post, and we subsequently started writing backwards and forwards, and then we started with telephone conversations, some of which would last up to 5 hours at a time, whilst we talked through 30 years of our respective histories, what had happened in our lives, what had been important to us, and where we were now as people. And so after all of that, we arranged very tentatively to meet. We travelled to where he lives, and we met in an awful building in social services, because that's the way that it was arranged. Very quickly left there and found ourselves on a lovely piece of grass, taking off our socks and shoes, and him looking at my feet and being able to say it was the first time he'd seen a pair of feet that looked like his. So that was a really, really emotional day, very exciting part of our journey together, and we've now been in touch for 10 years. He came with his wife and his boys to both of our birth daughters' weddings, and we are in constant touch, which for me is wonderful, absolutely wonderful. So no sense of reproach or difficulty about that. We just completely accept each other as we are. I don't need him to meet a gap in my life. He certainly doesn't have a me-shaped gap in his life in terms of his mother or his father. He has wonderful parents, but we know that we are important to one another, and yeah, we hope that will continue for many years to come.
Can I ask you what you've made?
Nothing really, just they're pretty shape. Purple is my favourite colour, so I could sit and play with purple Play-Doh all day. I think it's just a really nice squidgy. I just love the sensation of playing with Play-Doh.
Thank you very much.